Welcome to Explore Parenting Growth, the channel where we help parents confidently guide their children towards success in life and career. Each week, we bring you real conversations, proven strategies, and inspiring stories to strengthen your parenting journey. Today's conversation is a powerful one. We're joined by Will and Tosha Archer, an international couple with decades of leadership experience in media, ministry, and executive spaces. Together, they've raised two remarkable young adults while navigating global living, high level leadership, and deep commitment to emotional health. This episode is especially for parents who are successful professionally but want to be just as intentional at home. Thank you so much, Will and Tasha, for joining us. We really appreciate it. We would love for you just to start out and just tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. We're so grateful for this opportunity to speak to you and all of your listeners and all the people that are following this incredible podcast. My name's Will, and this is my wife Tasha,
I'm Tasha.
and we've been married for 26 years.
Yep.
We have two kids that we love, like you love your kids with all of our hearts.
You're welcome.
A 22-year-old son, a 17-year-old daughter, and we've lived and worked in 7 different cities. And we've had the privilege of raising our kids here in North America. We've had our privilege of raising our kids in the Caribbean, and together as a family, we've gone and served all over the world in different capacities. And so it's really an honor to speak with you guys. And we are just, we're striving just to be good enough as parents. So we're glad that we can contribute a little something.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And yeah, no problem. And for me, I just want to say I have loved parenting.
Mhm.
Like I have loved every stage of their little lives. And that doesn't say that it hasn't been hard because it is the hardest thing I've ever done my whole entire life. Yep.
Mhm.
But I have loved every stage.
Mhm.
It's just a beautiful thing to be able to have the gift of being a parent. That's it. That's all I wanted to share.
Now, I'm going to start off, and I'm just going to ask this first question to Will directly. We've had conversations, and you describe yourself as a global citizen. How did your multicultural upbringing shape how you parenting your children, especially around identity and belonging?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm really fortunate that I had two amazing parents. Sadly, both of my parents passed away. My dad when I was 9,
Yeah.
and my mom passed away 5 years ago, when I was in my mid 40s. And I was fortunate to live in a number of different places. I was born here in the U.S., lived in Jamaica, lived in England, lived in Saudi Arabia for a brief time. Uh, and then came back to the U.S. after I finished high school in Jamaica, and that definitely shaped my worldview. And I wanted to be sure that my kids were able to experience lots of different people from lots of different cultures, so that they could accept people that were different than them, really have a broad sense of the world and themselves. Um, but I also struggled because a good part of our time we raised our kids here in the U.S. And my concern raising my kids in the U.S. is I didn't want them to just have a very binary or Americentric worldview. I wanted them to appreciate our American heritage,
Yeah.
but also to engage with lots of different people.
Mm.
So while we lived here, we've taken them on service trips, mostly to Southeast Asia. Um, to be able to kind of connect. And so, but honestly, like I said, like Tasha said, parenting is the hardest thing we've ever done because you love them with all of your heart. You make so many mistakes as a parent, and you just pray for the grace of God.
And apparently it never ends.
Yep.
We're still gonna be doing it forever.
Yep. You're always your kid's parent.
So, what did you intentionally do to help Makai and Journey develop a strong sense of identity while living internationally and navigating constant change?
Oh.
That is a really good question.
Mm-hmm.
When you say constant change, it really was constant
Mm-hmm.
change. Like my son would ask all the time, "Who's coming over today? What are we doing today? How full is our schedule today?"
Right. Even if you're living as
Yeah, exactly. And I always thought that he was asking that because he was excited about it, like we were, but he was not. He was not excited. He did not want to have people over. He did not want to be all over the place. He's a kid who loves consistency.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to move all the time.
Nope.
And that is the life he has had. He has moved all the time. And one of the things that we were really, really working hard with is just being consistent in our home. Since everything else is kind of up in the air, yeah, what we did is we made sure that we had very intentional family time with them. Sometimes, a lot of times, it was family time based around the Bible.
Yeah.
But the other times, it was just fun.
Mhm.
Yeah. Actually, when it was based around the Bible, it was also fun because we did skits and all kinds of stuff. But sometimes it was just Uno. It was just and teaching them character through those things, through all of that fun. They didn't even realize
Mhm.
what they were learning during that
Mhm.
time.
Mm.
And then also just giving them like healthy autonomy, like helping them to make age appropriate decisions for themselves, asking their opinions about things. People might disagree with me about this, but I have loved learning their little opinions. Like as they are grown up now, I am amazed at the wisdom that they have.
Mhm.
Like
Mm.
amazed at the deep convictions that they have about the things that they think and how deeply they think about it and how confident they are about their own opinions.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're able to listen to other people who differ from them and respect them.
Yeah.
So there have been many times where they have opinions that we just think are stupid. It just thinks that's not a good opinion. That's what do you like? But asking them, why do you believe that? Why do you think that? And maybe you can convince me, or maybe we will agree to disagree and respect each other
Mhm.
after that. So there have been lots of consistent family times that have created spaces to have these types of conversations. And bedtime was the best time in our house.
Okay.
That was the time where we got to talk. That was the time we got to debrief the day. And and then after that, we would pray. And a lot of times that's where we found out what was really going on. you know? So I think that was what has helped with the consistency, and with them having their own sense of what was the question? Their own sense of identity, their own sense of belonging, their own sense of this is who we are as a unit, you know? No matter what's going on out there,
Right.
this family, we have each other's back. Like we are here for each other.
Yeah, and the only thing I'd add to that is that was easier when they were smaller
Mm.
because we kind of control the schedule a lot more.
Yeah.
Also, as they got older, the complex realities of being middle school, which I call the armpit of humanity, like
Yeah.
the harder times. Like middle school was hard, high school has been hard.
Yeah.
I think, we struggled at different stages with all the things that Tasha talked about. So I think they're younger, the consistency that was really great. The middle school years were choppy and challenging, but I think through all of it, if there's one thing that I would offer to parents, it's, and we live in a world with really dynamic parenting situations. I mean, there are lots of single parents, there are lots of blended families. I come from my parents were divorced and my dad raised me as a single dad. Um, you know, Tasha's parents were married when she was 5 years old. So her mom raised her for the first 5 years as a single mom. So there are lots of kind of family dynamics. But what I'd say is it's really important that couples love each other because I think that perhaps the most important thing we've been able to contribute to our kids is us constantly working on our relationship and them seeing like when we have a disagreement, we walk them through how we resolve the conflict because they invariably heard the argument or they internalized the negative energy that they felt in the household.
Yeah.
So we just try to be as transparent as possible. I think now that we've got a 22-year-old and a 17-year-old, it's been really interesting what Tasha's saying. They're both really wise. They give us really pointed advice.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, and I think a big part of it is we welcomed those inputs at the different stages that they were in.
Mhm.
But parenting is hard and we are painfully imperfect. So we just try to do the best we could. Sure.
Sounds great. Yeah.
My next question, you both were Well, I should tell you both have held visible leadership roles in ministry as well as media and in certain executive spaces that I mentioned in the intro.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
did being present actually look like in real life, not in theory?
That's a great question. I think that's probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
Um, because we really took great pains to be physically present, but to be emotionally present took a lot more energy.
Mhm.
Because when you give a lot outside of your house, like most people do, and you're in public spaces, um, it's really important that your household is a safe place for your kids.
Yeah.
And I think with both of our kids, they struggle with that. Both of our kids are amazing people. They're both introverts. They both don't like being around large groups of people for long periods of time.
We all wonder, how did we have children like this?
We had to make different decisions. Sometimes it was Tasha going home. Sometimes it was me going home.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was leaving a meeting when necessary.
Mhm.
A lot of times we just didn't get it right. And the kids communicated how much strain it created.
Yeah.
And sometimes we had to pull back from some responsibilities at different stages. Um, I think the thing that's great about kids is that they want to be connected with you.
Yeah.
And that truthfully, kids are very forgiving if you take responsibility.
Yes.
You know what
Yes.
I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
I think we just had to live in a state of grace. We're
Yeah.
like, all right, we blew it. Here's
Yeah.
what happened. Or we have to do this, but we won't do that.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
you know, one tool I just wanted to mention, this is super helpful to us. It's this great book called Good Enough Parenting. It helped us from John and Karen Louie. Um, and um, and really, I think what it helped me more than anything else is to have realistic expectations for myself, because there are no perfect parents.
Yes.
So recognizing that the key thing is that you meet their core emotional needs. And if there are two needs you have to meet, your kids always need to feel connected to you, and they always need to feel accepted by you.
Mhm.
So that's kind of where we struggled to
Mhm.
do that. And it's different with boys than girls. It's different
Yeah.
with every
It's different with each kid. Like,
kid.
it's all very different.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I would add to that is truly treasuring the moment.
Yeah.
So whenever you are with your kid, I know for me, whenever I was with my kid, just not being on my phone, being very, very deliberate about, you know what, this is your time.
Mhm.
This time is special to me, just like it's special to you, so I'm going to make sure that you know that this is important to me and I'm focused on you and nothing and no one else during this time. Right. And it's little bitty things like when every time I would pick my daughter up from school, she actually expressed to me one day, she was like, I don't like it when you're on the phone when you pick me up. And I was like, duly noted, my dear. All right. So after that, I was like, oh, she wants my full attention. Yeah. That's important to her. So from that point on, I would be like, I'd be on, no matter what I'm handling, I'm like, oh, my daughter's coming to the car. I gotta go. So I am gonna be 100% focused on her when she gets in the car. That's a 10-minute ride, but that makes a difference.
Gotcha.
It's just being 100% in. Doesn't matter how much time it is.
Mhm.
It matters that when you are having that time, that it is deliberate and focused
Mhm.
and not distracted by anyone or any other thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Those are great intentional gems that you've
Yeah.
gave to them.
Mhm. Thank
Now,
you.
you know, from my experience that I've witnessed and myself also experienced also, high achieving parents can often struggle with control as well as being perfect. What have you learned about when striving for quote unquote perfect parenting actually works against a child's emotional health and what matters more instead?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And the truth is, we could take a couple hours to unpack that, because I think that's what most parents struggle with is you love this child so much that you just want to do it right. And
Yeah.
you also apply all the things you have in your workspace to a child. And your child is not a project, and they're not an assignment, and they're not a career. Projects and careers and assignments and parenting,
Parenting apparently does not.
it really not. I mean, uh, I think the first thing I'd say is they're the most influential person in anybody's life is their parents, whether they're present or absent. And so I think recognizing that is really important.
Mhm.
Also, kids are not looking for you to be perfect.
Right.
They really just want to be connected with you. And you cannot, you're dealing with another human being. You really are navigating kind of in the initial stage is just keeping them alive, right? It
Right.
was like the fear, like, oh no, are you alive?
Mhm.
So make sure they're fed and they're alive.
Yeah.
Beyond survival, the next thing is you're trying to ensure that you're educating and shaping them. But
Yes.
if you begin with the end in mind, what you have to realize is if you try to be a perfectionist, if you try to control them, you're going to exasperate them, that you're actually going to drive them away and you're going to create a wall between yourself and them. So if you want long-term influence and if you want to have a kind of a multi-generational, this is what we talk about a lot, Tasha and I,
Mhm.
we try to think 4 generations. So we talk to our kids about this. We're like, whatever we're doing now, this house we're paying off, this is for you guys, it's for your kids and for your grandkids, right? Yeah. So we're like, all right, so if you're thinking long term, you want to have influence. So influence, a lot of that has to do with like respect, listening, engagement, and taking responsibility when you mess up.
Yeah.
Um, but a big part of that is working on yourself.
And on that note of messing up, you're just gonna mess up.
You got it.
I think once people realize, once you're a parent, the first time you realize you don't know everything and you really don't have a clue what you're doing, and then you start messing up, you're like, oh, woe is me. I can't believe I messed that up. Of course you messed it up. Like every parent messes up. Because we're all human and all these little children are human. They're all different and they don't come with a manual. Right. So here we are trying to figure out how to do things, how to help them to become these great adults, but we mess up in the middle of it and then we feel bad about it and we're not vulnerable.
Right.
Vulnerability with our kids is
Key.
key. It helps them to know that they can mess up and that you can come back from that. Anyone can come back from a mistake if they admit it and if they're willing to change and work on it after that.
Right.
It's just that simple. If they can see their mom and dad do that, then they're like, oh, well, I can admit when I mess up too. Because it's so hard when kids can't admit when they mess. You looking at me like, you poor thing. I know you did that,
You did.
but you just can't.
We're okay.
You just
You're the only person
it.
that counts.
It's but that they need that example from their parents. Like, I messed that up. I broke that. Like, all right, and here's my weakness. Here's my need. Let me share how I messed up. And after that, ask your kid. Like, don't the thing I've realized is that I thought my mistakes messed up my kids in certain ways. But then when I started asking them later on in life, I was like, I should have asked you how I messed you up. Like I should have asked you, like, how has this affected you? Instead of me assuming that I knew, we usually don't know nothing. So asking them, like, hey, how I messed up, and then how do you feel about that, and how has that affected you?
Yeah,
Will go a long way.
it does.
That sounds great. Yeah. So, how do parents pass on important values in a way that invites ownership rather than compliance, especially in a high pressure, success driven household?
Yeah, again, you guys are asking some really great
Yeah.
questions. I think um, compliance is dangerous. It really is because compliance really is a reflection of dishonesty because you're just saying what I want you to hear. And this is really hard if you are a big personality, like we're two big personality people,
Yeah.
right? And so it's easy to feel like I don't want to make you look bad. I want you to be happy with me.
Mm.
So let me just comply and not really develop conviction.
Right.
Conviction really requires that you take time to ask questions,
Yep.
that you respect differences. So
Yes.
the
Yes.
four of us are very different. We see the world differently. We experience the world differently. We all four of us like different foods. Like I mean, we're four very different people. Um, but what I'm really excited about is I feel like the core values that I wanted to pass on to our kids, to Makai and to Journey, really have gotten passed on. Like, Journey has incredible empathy, and she stands up for justice against people that are not treated right.
Yeah.
Like, she's a fighter, and that's been who she is. We've tried to nurture that.
Yeah.
You know, uh, Makai really thinks deeply and cares about people and is a natural protector. That's kind of, and provider. That's kind of who he is. So those are key values. What you have to negotiate, and this is how you get past the compliance based versus conviction, is you have to understand that you're not going to get everything, right? So
Right.
that, maybe the children that do that, they might be not as strong in other areas, like washing the dishes
Mhm.
all the times you want them to, or taking out the trash. Like, that's real. Like, so you have to decide what really matters,
Important. Yeah.
and decide that. The other thing I'd share is this: the best parent is God. Like, God
Yes.
always gets it right. Built this beautiful, perfect planet for us.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
always available.
Yes.
Almost all of his kids are rebellious, don't agree, don't have his values, don't have his heart. Like, I just want to say that sometimes you could do everything right,
Yeah.
and your kids are still messed up right now.
And that's okay.
Don't lose it. Just create a way back. And
That's
that's
great.
what God does. God models health, and he creates pathways back,
Mhm.
and he never gives up.
Mhm.
And I think if you can set that as your mindset, like, all right, I'm playing for the long game, it'll give you the strength kind of when you're in the messy middle of everything seeming like you blew it. And every parent feels the utter despair of failure. Sure. I have totally lived that.
Oh yeah, all of us have. If you're a parent, you know what that feels like.
Verbally.
I think as well, it's it's less barking of orders. As they get older, when they're little, you tell them what to do, and that's it. You have to do that to keep them alive. But then later, as they get more and more mature, it's learning when to give them instruction and explain, you know, and when they need you to just say no, that is not acceptable. Like there's a difference, and it gets less and less as they get older. They need more of, let me give you instruction on why you think that, why you do that, and how you do that, less of the, just do that. And a lot of us, we grew up in a era where our parents were like, "'Cause I said so,"
Right.
and that's all we know. And so we pass it on to our kids.
Yeah. I don't always want.
It is not, and then you tell your kids, "'Cause I said so." Next thing you know, they're just doing it behind your back anyway. So
Yeah.
they're much better to know what they're doing
Hmm.
and to talk them through it, yes, than to just assume, they did what you wanted them to do and, because you barked an order,
Hmm.
So
Yes.
I think that's the difference.
Something I wanted to hit on. Will, you have worked in AI ethics and human development. Uh, what should parents be focusing on that schools, even elite schools, are not teaching?
Yeah. Get your kids off the phone as much as possible. Um, uh, the the phones really are, and technology is an amazing tool and should be used in its right context, but it's a tool.
Yeah.
It wasn't designed to be a place to live your life, because it's altered reality, and particularly for young girls, there's been incredible levels of self-harm and suicidal ideations, um, and destructive behavior that has to do with this correlation of looking at everyone else as perfect, wanting to be like what you see all the time,
Yeah.
and the companies benefit from selling products that kind of get you to do all those things. I'll tell you, that's something we've had to struggle through. I think with young boys, there's been an incredible rise in their viewing of pornography, which is completely plummeting testosterone rates and making it really difficult for young men to have real conversations with women, because they their brains are wired to just view them through a sexual context and not as a human being made in the image of God. Um, I say all that to say that I think, the
Mm.
The parents that are able to migrate their kids away from technology all the time and do activities um, see the best benefits. But that's not. I'm not an advocate for being like a troglodyte. Like, don't
Right.
you can't you can't go away from tech. You just have to understand what it is, understand where the benefit points are,
Yeah.
um,
Certain
and
kids are.
and then make adult decisions about how you navigate that. One thing I thought was really interesting is I just watched this great interview from Prince William,
Mhm.
Huh?
Prince of England, and they were saying that Prince William ensures that his kids are never they don't have access to phones.
Right.
And I was like, which is really interesting because his mom was this big figure. He spent his whole life in front of a camera,
Mhm.
but they're very interested in keeping their kids away from tech. And more and more people that I know that are tech CEOs don't allow their kids to be on any of these sites or to have access to technology. Um, so I think that's a longer conversation. I'd love to have at another time for sure, um, because I think this is going to is reshaping right now, has reshaped our world
Yeah.
in some very meaningful ways.
So I'd like to end out with this question. If you could sit across from both of you, if you could sit across from a high achieving parent who feels professionally successful but uncertain at home, what would you advise them to do, and kind of what is something practically that they could do different or add to what their parenting?
It's a great question. Do you want to take it first, or you want me to take it?
No, you take it first then.
All right. So here's what I'd say. First and foremost, I think it's really important that you work on yourself.
Mhm.
I
Yes.
think and understand that your kids, more than anything else, need to see an example in you on how you live your life.
Yeah.
Um, and if you're married, I would say really work on your relationship with your spouse and model what healthy relationships look like.
Yeah.
Right.
If you're a single parent, work on yourself and make sure that you are plugged into a community of people that can help to provide lots of connectivity for your kids, mentors
Yeah.
for your kids, for either sons or daughters. I think that's really important. Uh, Nobody is perfect, and you should not measure your parenting the way you measure your professional life.
Right.
It's a legacy and affair. So it's not a job, it's not a task. You don't babysit your kids, you parent them, right? So it's
Right.
very different.
Yeah.
Uh, I made sure to have a couple resources. This is a great book that's been helpful. It's called Parenting Adolescence by Kevin Huggins. This is a helpful book. Boundaries for kids, setting healthy boundaries, I think is really important.
Good book.
Um,
Mm.
you know, we're our lives are directed by our faith. This is a really great book called Parenting by the Book. This is biblical wisdom for raising your child, with a study guide included. Just so you know, almost all the parents except for God in the Bible are awful parents. Yeah, the Bible's a great book to read if you want to feel good about yourself, because you're like, I I I'm just telling you, like David could kill Goliath, but he was an
Yeah.
awful
Yes.
parent. Abraham had great faith, but he was a bad parent.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But what's great about the Bible is it doesn't sugarcoat people's mistakes. So it teaches you a lot of principles about what not to do and how to come back from bad things.
Right.
And that's much of parenting. So that's what I would offer.
Yeah, the very first book I ever read, parenting book I've ever read, was the Book of Proverbs.
Yeah.
The literal book of Proverbs says
Right.
that is the best parenting book I know out there. And my son, I've learned
He
something
loves
from him. I've learned something very valuable from him. So we started having teaching him to read the Bible through Proverbs. And since he was a little boy, we started when he was a little boy, and then as he got older, he started reading it on his own. And now as an adult, he goes through Proverbs every year. Like he makes sure he goes through and I look at him, I'm like, you're such a wise young man. I'm thinking about this and I'm like, that's because he's digesting Proverbs like all the time. He never stops digesting it. But there is a there it's such a beautiful if you're a parent and you're like wondering, how can I do this well? If you went through Proverbs yourself
Mhm.
as a parent, um, just one sentence a day would do it. One sentence on Proverbs a day would do it. Will help to give you wisdom, will
Yes.
help to give you confidence
Yes.
as a parent. Well, you'll see all the mistakes that the Proverbs are gearing you away from. You'll see instruction on what direction to go in, what positive directions to go in. It's just super helpful. I would definitely say as well that I don't want any parent to feel bad
No.
about their mistakes.
Yeah, everybody messes up.
Everybody
Okay.
messes up,
It's okay.
and prayer and being on the same page with your spouse if you are married,
Mhm.
parenting, having the same, just being on the same page.
And that's hard to do.
Not, I mean, it's the hardest thing.
It's the hardest thing.
Making sure that the two of you are on the same page, and that when your kids come to you separately, it's not something different.
Right.
A lot of parents have a hard time with that, and the kids are a big source of an argument because they can't agree on how to parent the kids. And if you can't agree, then don't. I would recommend that you go and you pray together until you can
Mhm.
agree,
Yeah.
and talk about why that person believes and what he believes, or vice versa, and come to conclusion like, hey, I respect where you come. There's a reason why we all think the way we think.
Yeah.
So let's come to a conclusion together,
Mhm.
right, on how we're going to help our kids to get the initial goal that we have here.
Mhm.
And once you're on the same page, at least when you mess up together.
Yep.
And you gotta do it. You are doing this together, so you get to apologize together. You get to be on the same page together with your kids, seeing you work through your mistakes, seeing you work through being a human being, seeing you mess up, and seeing you be humble about it.
Mhm. That is the truth.
I love that.
Great. Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate the time that you've given us today. Thank you for your wisdom and insight and allowing us to just kind of sit at the table and listen to you guys. We greatly appreciate
I'm
that.
definitely very encouraged. Thank you.
Thank
Girls,
you. Thank you for asking us to be here. This has been such a pleasure.
It has.
no problem. And so, as we always end, parenting is a journey.
Explore your growth.
Thank you.